Hello and welcome to Our Avrame Home, where our family is building our very own Avrame Trio 120 from the ground up with no prior building experience. My name is Rob, and today I wanted to begin just by saying thank you to everyone who's been following us on this journey. It means a lot to me knowing that while I'm out here building this house largely by myself in the cold, that I'm not alone. Like I am alone. I have Toby, our dog, with us. Right, Toby? Woo! And I'm by myself a lot of the time. But knowing that there's so many of you watching and following along, it makes me feel like I'm not alone and I get to talk to a camera and I'm pretending that there's a person here in front of me. So thank you so much for following along. And if you've been leaving comments on both the channels here on Avrame's page as well as our personal channel, Canadian A Homestead, once again, I want to say thank you for that. We've gotten a lot of feedback, some helpful tips as well, and a lot of good questions. And one of those questions that keeps coming up again and again is, can you show us more of how the house itself is put together? Not just the long time lapses, but some details as to how things go together, what it looks like if you were to get this kit yourself. And so over the next few videos, we're going to be showing you some details about that. We're going to talk about how to actually assemble the trusses themselves. We're going to go into some detail as to how you can lift those trusses. We learned a lot of different ways to get the trusses from the ground up into the air, and so we're going to talk about that as well as how to fasten them to the ground. There's some different ways that can happen too. And so today I've got my instruction booklet and I've got some other things here that I want to show you and walk through. When you purchase an Avrame kit, you're going to get a copy of these instructions. We actually got the PDF version of this and got, I think, 5 or 6 of these little booklets made because we knew they were going to get covered in snow and lost and stuff. But today I want to talk to you about how the trusses themselves are actually assembled. On one of the pages here, it shows me the details as to what is actually required to assemble each truss. In our drawings here, it says that there's all of the different pieces of lumber are labeled and all the hardware you need is listed down here. But it says I need a TD1, a TD2, a TD3, TD4 and TD5, and that's for both sides of the truss. And so what we did when we were assembling these trusses, we would go and we would grab each one of those pieces of lumber that I had already previously sorted. We saw that in a separate video. Once I had organized all the lumber, it was easy to just grab the lumber that we needed, to pull it onto the slab, to get it all laid out and sitting there, grab all the hardware, and have it all sitting at the specific spots. In the instructions here, it shows you details as to how the actual components of the truss are assembled. And so we can see that on the knee wall here, there's gonna be 2 huge screws. And when I say huge, I mean huge. Like this is next to my face. I think it says it's 220 millimeters. I don't have imperial conversion for that, so someone else do the math for us. But on the knee wall, which is the vertical one that comes up from the ground, going to be 2 of these screws going up into it. At the joist, there's going to be 2 screws coming up in the bottom, 2 coming down from the top, and a huge heavy metal plate with 6, I think they're like 1/2-inch bolts and nuts going through those. At the peak, we have 4 of these huge screws coming through on a diagonal, and then across the top, there's a collar tie, again with 2 of these screws on either side of them. I think that'll work. And so now it's just 4 screws at the very peak and 2 on either end of that span that crosses between it. And so what we would do is we would get all of the lumber, all the hardware, we'd get it all laid out on the ground. We'd start from the bottom and work our way up. We would screw all the knee walls together, the 2 sides of the trusses and the joist itself. We would lay those down and we would put the big metal plate down on top of it. We'd make sure that everything was running flush, and then we would pre-drill all the holes where those bolts were going to get put through. We would put those bolts in, and after those were put in, then we would get out the drill and we would fasten, using those huge screws, we would fasten the actual sides of the truss to the joist at that point. Once the bottom portion was all fastened together, we would move to the top. We would get the drill out again and we would screw together the point or the peak of the truss, making sure that it met perfectly in the middle, that there was no shifting or overlap. And then once that was done, we would measure it down to where the collar tie was supposed to go. We would screw those together, and that was the assembled truss. Once they were fully assembled, and they were sitting there, we would then get the next set of lumber for the following truss, lay it down on top, put some blocks between it so that we had enough room to pre-drill out the plates and everything, and assemble the next one. And that's how we did it. One truss at a time. We just laid down all the material, screwed it all together, fastened it, and once we had enough ready to go, we would then begin the process of standing them up in place and fastening them to our slab. A couple more things I wanted to add. The first thing is that you might notice in some of the video footage that for some of the trusses, we built the bottom portion of the truss and the top portion of the truss together in one piece. And other times we built the bottom part and the top part separately, and this had to do with a lot of different factors. How much space we had on the slab. As we started building them, we ran out of space as we stood them up, so we ran out of space on the slab to actually construct them. There's also snow everywhere, which made it more and more difficult to have room to build. And also I was doing a lot of the work on my own, especially near the tail end of assembling the trusses. And so I had to think about what can I do by myself when it came to actually raising the trusses after they were assembled. And so for the variety of reasons, sometimes we built the whole truss, other times we built them into two separate parts. That totally just depended on what was happening in each given day. I also wanted to mention that our truss system might look slightly different than some of the standard ones that maybe you've built an Avrame home or maybe you've been researching them online. The one main difference is that in our truss system, where there's like the triangle, we don't have a main joist running along the bottom of the truss that would, I guess, prevent it from doing the splits. The reason why is because we really wanted our home to be built on a slab on grade where the concrete slab is the final floor. And so Avrame, their engineers, worked with us, and instead of that main joist, they provided us with these humongous steel brackets that get anchored to the concrete, one on either side of the truss, and that's what holds it to the concrete and gives it that support so it doesn't do the splits. If you're going to think about building your own Avrame home, this will be something to consider, whether you do the strip footings or maybe you want to build your house on a full basement or a slab on grade. Avrame, they worked with us. I'm sure they'd be willing to work with you in your design too. But if you want to know what it looks like in the standard kit, here's some pictures from some of our Avrame friends in Europe in their framing process. Well, hopefully that video was helpful for you to understand how the Avrame Trio truss system is actually assembled and put together. I know that before we had our kit on site, we wondered that too, like how does this thing actually go together? And I wish that a video like this existed back then, and now it does, so hopefully it's helpful for you too. I want to encourage you to tune in the coming weeks where we're next going to show you how you actually raise these trusses after they've been assembled. Tune in for that. See you soon.